He was both the father and the grandfather of those children. He also delivered the births, and that's why no one knew about it. Hi, welcome to Kryminalny Patrol. Today, a story that could probably be summed up with one word: true disgust. It escapes the bounds of logical thinking. I think it's terrible that a man who should be a pillar, a protector for his family, became their tormentor. Czerniki, a small village, practically a place that would never have a chance for anyone to hear about it. Just 180 residents, and I would even say it's on the border of a region that hardly anyone could even point out, on the border of the Kashubian-Kochievi region. So I would say it's really very difficult to locate. Because of what happened, all of this, the village, it was on practically everyone's lips, even beyond the country's borders. It was because of the family that moved there in 1998. They moved into one of the houses in that village. It was a big family, a father, a mother, and 12 children. I invite you to watch the next episode. The head of the family is Piotr G., now a 55-year-old man. He has a wife, Hannah, and they have 8 boys and 4 girls. Well, I would say the details of how they acquired it, or even the fact that they moved into this house at all, are quite bizarre. Previously, they lived in Gdansk. There they rented an apartment from a certain man, but after years, they never paid for that apartment. When the owner realized not only were they not paying, but they had also trashed the apartment. He tried to get rid of them, tried to evict them, but you know that in Polish conditions, evicting a family like that is practically impossible. So the owner of the apartment was in real trouble, because what could he do? He can't get rid of them despite all of this. So he bought a house in Czerniki, and he told Piotr G. that he bought him a house and that he should move there. And indeed, in 1998, Piotr and his family moved there. Some of the children were already born when they moved there, while others were born only after they settled in Czerniki. The fact is, Piotr and his family, 12 children lived there. That's really a lot. But it looks like Piotr is lazy, a slacker, and just a smart aleck. He turned having a lot of children into a pretty solid source of income. Those children walked around the village. They went to school. You could see that those children, well, they walked around, they looked neglected, they were poorly dressed, they were hungry, they needed help. In general, that the family needed help. That's how it seemed. Even the local priest, people got mobilized. The priest went to Piotr G. and said to him, well, you have a large family, you need help, so you can do your shopping at the local store, and I'll pay for those groceries. Well, Piotr, of course, agreed to that. That's how it went for a while, until the priest went to see him, and he says he has a job for him, that instead of sitting at home, Piotr could just go to work and provide for his family. But Piotr didn't even consider it. He told the priest that he didn't have so many children just to have to work now. The parish priest stopped paying the bills. However, the family was constantly under the care of social services. Of course, in different towns, everything depends, I would say, on whether the municipality is wealthy or not, whether it has more resources or not. These social care opportunities vary, but no matter how you look at it, you can get quite a lot with such a family. These are various types of permanent benefits, temporary benefits, and economic allowances. I'm just thinking about the money here. Of course, you can also get various types of equipment, devices, and similar things. When you have so many children and you save money on them, then Piotr G could really live like a king, as they say, doing nothing. And since he was completely devoid of any empathy, he was actually doing quite well at the expense of the children. The first one who couldn't take it anymore was Mrs. Hannah, Piotr's wife. The woman passed away rather quickly and left all the children at the mercy of her husband. The years went by, some of the children grew up, left home, and met new partners. So gradually there were fewer and fewer children at home. Also, in situations like this, in small communities, families like that usually stay on the sidelines. Of course, it's always like that. People know everything, absolutely everything. They know, but they gossip among themselves, they talk, but no one really takes any special interest in that family. Very few people keep in touch with them too. So most often the only people visiting Piotr and his family's home were usually social workers. At that time, I would say the oldest daughter, Natalia, kind of took over the role of the mother. Natalia tries to take care of the other children. Here, however, you can see some rather strange relationship between Natalia and her father. They are always together, they go shopping together. When Natalia goes to work, her father drives her there and picks her up. Natalia doesn't really try to connect with anyone. And that's when, for the first time, a notification is sent to the prosecutor's office. There's someone in this village. It's a man who, I would say, sees a lot. He also reported that Natalia had left. She was presumably pregnant. That the father of the child is presumably her father, Piotr. That there are incestuous relations between them. This man filed such a report with the prosecutor's office. The prosecutor's office theoretically conducted an investigation. Well, they explained everything. They concluded that there was no crime. And Piotr is not committing this kind of crime at all. Amazing. Because from a procedural point of view, it would have been enough to take Natalia to be examined by a gynecologist. And then we would know whether Natalia was actually pregnant or not. It seems that there were no such examinations here. That the prosecutor's office treated this for the first time with a certain disregard, and basically as if nothing was happening. They discontinued the proceedings. Shortly after that notification and after the case was dropped, Natalia met a guy. She moves out of the house. She becomes a mother. And she just disappears from that house. Piotr stays with the remaining children, but new notifications keep coming in all the time. In total, there are as many as 5 notifications to the prosecutor's office. All of them concern the fact that Piotr he has incestuous relations with his daughters here, or he abuses his family. But all these proceedings in some astonishing way are dismissed. Supposedly, the prosecutor's office clarified something, but basically I don't think they clarified anything. The family is also constantly under the care of social services. The social services are in the town of Czerniki. The workers come there, but they also don't notice anything wrong that could be happening in that house. Maybe also because there probably weren't any real connections or feedback between the prosecutor's office and this social services center. Or maybe the employees noticed something, but they didn't say anything. We probably won't get to the bottom of this because the center itself said they didn't have any such information. Although, again, we have to look at this with a certain distance or skepticism, because there's a certain lady from that village who later said that she went to that social welfare center, and she said that something bad was happening at home. The center itself ruled it out. They said that nothing like that happened. But there is a kind of seed here, I would say, of concern that actually the social welfare center itself might have known something. All this information was ignored. All the more so because Piotr is active, for example, on Facebook. He posts various kinds of videos and photos. I'm not talking about completely normal photos of nature or something like that, but there's also a lot of information about various kinds of pathologies, about the deaths of children, small children, newborns, about some extreme sexual things. And at some point, even on his profile, a photo of one of his daughters appears. And the caption under that photo is "Hot chick up for grabs." Yeah. Do you know any normal father who would post a photo of his daughter with a caption like that? So that was already a kind of signal that something was wrong with this man, or at least with his mind. Supposedly, all of this is happening within the four walls of that house. Well, of course, there are more walls than that. It seems that people know everything after all. There's just no way around it. They have to know, after all. There were many more signs like that. For example, one of Piotr's sons said something at school, that his father beat him severely, and also that his father has sex with his sister. Well, there was a lot of that information. There were also some voices, criticism towards the residents as well, that they knew they didn't say anything, they didn't do anything. Well, that's not entirely true, because it turns out that there was a certain man from this village who regularly reported things to the prosecutor's office. There was a lady who went to social services. Apparently, not only did these people achieve nothing, but they also faced such criticism that they have to be careful, because it could be slander. And in fact, they might be the ones to face the consequences here. So it's hard to be surprised, because after all, in an environment of 180 people, everyone knows everything right away, so they certainly knew that there were proceedings. Proceedings are being discontinued and the prosecutor's office took no action. Well then, what more can be done? And that's how it went on for the next years. More children kept leaving that home. And at some point, only Piotr remains in the house. He is 54 years old at that time. Paulina, who is 20 years old, remains, and Damian, who is 24 years old, also stays. Who is a disabled boy? He is disabled due to intellectual reasons, and so the three of them remain. And here again, the situation with Paulina comes up, just like there was the situation with Natalia, father and daughter. They become inseparable again. They go everywhere together. What's more, Paulina, the daughter, calls her father by his first name. Everyone knows what's going on. Everyone suspects what's happening. All the more so because they see that this disabled Damian is sometimes just left outside the house by his father. That then, he has intercourse with his daughter. That Damian is only let in when everything is already over. This goes on for a couple of years, more or less. Of course, it's hard to pinpoint the exact time here. But what happened to Paulina later started around 2019. So, at the time, Paulina was only 16 years old. It's 2023 already. At that time, Paulina attends vocational school and has internships. She has an internship, among others, at a pastry shop. At some point there, her supervisor notices that she has a belly. Well, a belly like the one pregnant women have. So she asks Paulina if she's pregnant. She says no, that she's absolutely not pregnant. She has a belly like that because she has an illness. Ascites. Hey, Paulina has been absent from the internship for a while. She comes back, but she's clearly weak, not feeling well, and sits down a lot. You can clearly see that something's wrong with her. On top of that, the women working there notice that she's stuffing tissues into her bra. So they start talking, discussing it among themselves. They're convinced that Paulina was pregnant, that she gave birth, and that she's stuffing tissues because she's lactating. The manager talks to her again. That's when one of the employees sees a text message from Paulina's father, from Piotr. He wrote, "She's still crying," which would suggest that there's a small child who keeps crying. Again, the manager asks Paulina if she gave birth to a child. She denies it again, but the woman is convinced that it's simply a lie, that it's not true. So she goes to social services and says that supposedly the girl who is doing her internship gave birth to a child. All of this happens on September 4th, 2023. The next day, on September 5th, a social worker goes to this family's house. She made up a story that she simply came to talk to the disabled Damien. She told Piotr that, then went inside. She also asked him to go outside because she wanted to talk to Damien alone as soon as Piotr left the house. In the room where Paulina was, she was lying in bed, weak, and the woman immediately realized that probably, just as the manager of the pastry shop said, she had recently given birth, but there was no child anywhere. The employee left the house, and later at the health center, they wrote a report to the police informing them that there was probably a child in that house who is nowhere to be found. The police are going to the scene. On September 15th, after 10 days, basically at this point, it doesn't really matter much in this case, but honestly, a lot more could probably have been done. The police officers arrive at the scene faster. They start talking to Paulina, and what they heard is simply shocking and terrifying. During the interrogation at the police station, Paulina said she admitted that she had indeed recently given birth to a child, but the child is no longer alive and that it is buried. She was silent in the basement for a moment, and then she added something that was an even bigger shock for the police officers. She said that there are more buried children in the basement. The police officers immediately took tracking dogs with them. They also took a scanner, went to that house and started digging. And they found 3 mounds, 3 graves in the basement, 3 graves of newborns. These graves were next to each other. When they dug them up, it turned out that the body of one of the children was already in an advanced state of decomposition. Then it became clear that the child had been dead for about 9 years. Everything indicated that out of these 3 children, one child was from Piotr's incestuous relationship with his daughter Natalia, and the other 2 were from Piotr's father's relationship with his daughter Paulina. Of course, Piotr was detained and Paulina was detained as well. How was it possible that no one formally knew about these pregnancies? And that's because, of course, none of the girls had ever been to a doctor. That was also, I would say, the custom in this house, that the midwife at the births, even of his own children, when his wife Hannah was giving birth, was actually the father himself, who was also the grandfather of these children. He also delivered the babies, and because of that, no one knew that children were being born in this house. At this moment, Piotr, families, father and grandfather, the children who were murdered, he has been charged with 3 counts of murder. Of course, this concerns his children and grandchildren. He is also facing charges of incestuous relations with his daughters. Paulina is also in temporary custody. She is also charged with murder, and she is also charged with incestuous relations with her father. There are still a lot of unanswered questions in the case, such as the fact that when one of the daughters who had moved out earlier left, the third daughter, Agnieszka, shortly after she moved out of the house, gave birth to twins, and everyone knew that she didn't have a partner. Could it be that Piotr was the father as well? Everything points to that. Those twins were taken away from Agnieszka anyway. The fourth daughter, the youngest, when she basically ran away from home, moved in with a certain lady and told her about what her father was doing, that he was raping his daughters, abusing the other children, that he was a tyrant and an aggressor, that he was simply a beast. But basically, nothing was done about it at the time. It also seems, unfortunately, that the mother of these children, Hannah, who passed away earlier, knew about everything as well, because during a conversation with one of the neighbors, she said that her husband was visiting one of the daughters' beds too often. So everything indicates that everyone knew about everything perfectly well. Of course, the question is who failed in this situation. Well, the prosecution definitely failed, at least it seems that way, as they didn't conduct a thorough investigation and didn't even use obvious possibilities like checking whether Natalia was pregnant or not. There's the question of whether people failed, probably in some way. Yes, that all of this torment of these children could have lasted so many years, and I would even say in the spotlight of everything that surrounded them. In the spotlight, meaning with the awareness of the people who lived there, who probably knew about this pathology the whole time. But for these people, as I mentioned before, it's a bit hard to blame them because there were reports and yet no one did anything. So what more could they have done? Maybe they could have done more, but that's obviously a topic for discussion. There were a lot of these signals. Another thing is the school, because a lot of this information also appeared in schools. Many of these children talked about what their father was doing. They confided, they spoke. They talked about beatings, about rapes. Also, sometimes strange behavior that people noticed, like when the father would come to pick up his daughter, take her into the car, and leave the other children who had to walk home on foot. At one point, he also cut one of his daughter's hair in response to a question. That girl said he cut her hair so she wouldn't meet any boys, so she simply wouldn't be prettier and wouldn't move out of the house. There were really a lot of these signs. Let me say it again. Everyone simply had to know about everything. Now it looks like Piotr is being arrested. Paulina is also being arrested. You will probably discuss it. Probably not everyone will agree with me, but Paulina, in my opinion, even though she faces life imprisonment, is also a victim in some way. Because she has always been in that house. She grew up with all of this since she was a little child. She watched all of this. Who was supposed to tell her that life could be different? Who was supposed to teach her such defense mechanisms? Well, no one. She was doomed to that monster who was always beside her. As for the formal matters, meaning that she has charges, of course, yes, because she committed a crime. But should she be in prison? Should she be? Should she be arrested? Should she later serve a life sentence? I have mixed feelings, and if someone asked me directly, I would say no, because maybe there's a chance that she could somehow return to normal life. Regarding Piotr G, there's no doubt about that monster, that beast. This man should never have children. He should never have a family. He's simply a monster. That's what he should be. In prison. And that's it for today's episode. Of course, subscribe to our channel, and of course, take care.